Well, folks, in today's live stream, we're going to be working on this lifelike Conrail F7. This is a locomotive which I got from a subscriber about a month ago, and when I did that video, it was pretty clear that this locomotive had definitely sat for a while. You could just judge by the wheels that, things had not moved in quite some time. Now, during that video, I did manage to get this locomotive moving under its own power. Usually when these lifelikes have been sitting for a while, you can just get them rotating, and that will usually clean up the wheels enough to run them. And this thing was running fine up until a few days ago when I tried to run it again and it wouldn't start. The headlight would come on, but it unfortunately was not operating. So today we're going to try to figure out what exactly is going on with it and see if we can get it up and going again. I don't think it's going to be difficult. I don't think the motor failed, but I do think it could be an issue with the brushes because it's just not very usual to have a light which is working and not a motor which is working. So anyway, I'll take it over to the track. I'll just show you all kind of like what it's doing right now, and then we'll go from there. And Robert says, do you use AuxGuard, and how so? I've tried AuxGuard. To tell you the truth, I haven't noticed any difference since I started using it. I added it onto my roster maybe like a month ago, but we'll see. Maybe in the long term it will make a difference, but I don't want to recommend something until I can confirm for myself that it works. I've heard good things about it, but I'll have to see for myself. Anyways, let's take this thing over to the track so I can show you what the problem seems to be. And blame line, I'm probably not getting that right. Hey SMT, I just wanted to tell you that I want to give you something from my Canadian National switcher. It runs and lights, and the real one ran in Gatineau, your hometown. Wow, well that's a cool story. Anyways, get this thing set up here. You can see the headlight is shining. It's a little bit dim, but it's definitely visible. The current draw is low, so that's a giveaway that it's not seized. And even if I turn the motor over, because with these pancake drives, you can actually rotate the motor by pushing it on the track, it doesn't want to start. So something's definitely up. So we'll open it up, figure out why exactly it won't go. Now, if any of you have ever worked on locomotives, you'll know these are not very high quality engines. I do find they're quite easy to fix, probably the easiest kind of engine brand to fix, just because they're so simple. They're simpler than Bachmann and Tyco. Not that those were terribly complicated either, but I just find these have a few less parts, which makes them a little bit more of a joy to work on. Now, we know that the engine's picking up power because the light is working, so we can confirm that, the contacts in here are good, the wheels are clean enough to conduct power, these wires are delivering power to the light. The motor's not turning over, so what we can draw from that is something's wrong. Now, it could be a case where these two wires snap off, but they're still attached, which is why the light is on. I mean, this doesn't look good, but they're still pretty snug, so I don't think that we have a case where the solder has gone bad. So my money at this point is probably on the brushes. Now, the easiest way to remove this would be just to pop those out. And I guess since the brushes might be the problem, I'll grab a screwdriver, we'll clean those up and see what we can do. Put power directly to the brush plates. Well, I think it would do the same thing, but just to see for the sake of it, let's try it out. Maybe the results will be different. But I would assume that if the light was working and everything's connected right, it would be the same, but here, let's try it out. We got the Tech 3, I'm gonna put 12 volts to it right here. You can see it's sparking there, so we do have power in the leads. And yeah, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but see it's doing the exact same thing. Even if we put those right there. So it's gotta be an issue either with the brushes or it could be with the springs. Now, something I have seen happen on these pancake drives is the springs are so thin, Sometimes if the engine stalls, the spring will actually melt because too many amps are passing through it. So what I'm thinking we do is we pull both of these off and see if the springs are flat or if one of the brushes maybe has disintegrated. It was weird though, like it was running fine before it stopped. So, you know, usually if these things fail, like you can kind of smell it. That did not occur here. And well, there's one of the springs right there. And the brush, both of those look fine. So that one is not the problem. Let's open up door number 2 here and see if we're just as fortunate. If they are okay, that's going to be mysterious. And, well, yeah, that looks okay. Just get that other brush out. How mysterious. They both look okay. Well, that is very odd. Now, I'm just going to get my parts dish here because I lose these little bits quite often, and it's a real pain in the neck when you do. Now, to get this out, pretty straightforward. You just want to get yourself a flatheads like this, and you just push this contact in here, and there's one on the other side. Now, if you're working on a Bachmann, which looks very similar to this, you usually have one side that unscrews, so just keep that in mind. And then you see how the plastic's a bit thinner, so I think we're supposed to remove this side first. It's not the greatest gearbox I've ever seen, but yeah. It may be a wire of the commutator. I've seen that before. Yeah, you could be right about that. If one of the wires breaks on the windings, it would create a no-start situation, so either we'd have to go find another armature for it, or maybe I'd try rewinding it. I don't know. Rewinding a motor is a tricky thing. I'm not very good at it. But I have been successful a couple times at doing so I don't know. Could put all the marbles out and try to rewind the damn thing. Let's see if we can get this apart. This is something you do have to be kind of careful with because there's a lot of like metal parts and stuff. And if you bend this, you can break the plastic, and then the whole block at that point is basically broken. Can you show the Challenger? I think right now I want to focus on the repair, but maybe later on, if we get this thing running, I'll dig the Challenger out of storage and we'll see if we can get it to go here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to pry this apart. You have to be really careful, again, doing this, because if you like put a screwdriver in there and you hit the windings, you can break them. That's another thing I did many years ago. I forgot to remove the 2 screws, so that's why that's holding up. If you're going to rewire an armature, you're a better and braver man than you. I don't know about that. I mean, I know how to rewind an armature. It doesn't mean I'm very good at it. I just need to figure out how... I bought a pair of calipers. I'd like to actually figure out how to, you know, get the proper gauge of wire and figure out how to rewind these things properly. There go all our gears right there. I mean, this all looks okay. Let's investigate this. Now, this engine definitely has had some wear on it. It's not the worst I've seen, but we'll have a visual inspection here and just see if any of the wires look broken as Norman Corey suggested. And so far they look fine, but let me get my multimeter out. We'll try to do a continuity test. That can usually reveal problems with these things. Before we test the continuity, one thing I always do is clean the commutator. And you might wonder, why would you clean the commutator on something that might be broken? And the answer is, there was one time I had an armature which had a broken winding, and I was doing continuity tests, and it kept passing the continuity tests even though it wasn't starting under its own power, which is usually a symptom of a bad winding. And it turned out what was going on is the commutator was so dirty, power was still flowing between the plates, even though it wasn't going through the coils. So I always clean the commutator before I do a continuity test, just to make sure you rule that out and you can actually verify whether or not the windings are any good. So we'll select this here, put it on sound. And you can see that's working. That's good. Oh. So, you know, those are good, those are good, those are good. Let's double check them all. It's passing the continuity test. Now, just because it passes continuity doesn't mean that the windings aren't, you know, burned up. You know, sometimes power can still be flowing through in funny ways. But these windings look really good, you know? You see how clean they are? There's no burn marks or anything. Those are usually a pretty clear indicator that you got bad windings. So I'm thinking maybe the fact that one of the brushes is smaller than the other, maybe it did melt and it just wasn't applying enough pressure. That's the only thing I can kind of figure at this point, because everything else seems okay. I found 5 Southern Railroad spikes in West Virginia. They have a T HC on top, and they look like ones in the movie October Sky. That is a, I haven't seen the movie, but that is a great scene. If you haven't seen the railroad scene from October Sky. I've seen parts of that movie. It does look very good, but yeah, definitely go check that out if you want a funny moment involving some trains. So I guess we'll, at this point, just kind of throw this back in here. We'll relocate that magnet there. We'll try putting it back together. We'll see if maybe just rebuilding it gets it running again. You know, it could just be a matter of the brush is just not making very good contact. If this thing's been sitting for a while, sometimes what can happen is when these things sit, the metal on the brushes can actually stick to the commutator. So it's possible that maybe, you know, they just weren't doing their job very well. I don't know. Yeah, let's try getting this thing back together. While we're at it too, I'll do like a little bit of basic cleaning in here and stuff. We'll throw in some fresh oil, and hopefully it will all work. And put it back together. Put it back in the block with the magnets and touch power to either side. Should spin. Yeah, I think it is gonna start. It's all like pretty clean in here too. Sometimes you open these things up and they're like packed with pet hair and stuff. This is just a little bit of factory grease. So this engine, you know, it was definitely run because there was a tiny bit of wear on the commutator, but this was a very low hour locomotive. It did not see too much action. Let's put some oil there. You don't need a crazy amount of oil in these things, honestly. Like they're pretty simple engines. They've all got nylon parts, which are not super high wear anyway. I've just got to remember the order of all of these because I believe these 2 gears are slightly different sizes. I think the 2 small ones are the ones that go first, but yeah, this might be a good memory test for me. I think the order it goes is I think you put the 2 larger ones in first. Let's get that peg right there. And I believe those are followed by the smaller ones. I think that one's the main one. Get that out of there. I think that's right. I don't know. If I mess this up, I'll find out very fast. What DCC system do you use for your DCC engines? I have a Digitrax DCS 51. They have newer controllers now. There's the DCS 52 now, which I worked with. My friend has one. It's a pretty good controller in my opinion. And there's always like NCU and like other brands out there. Yeah, that all seems to be turning okay, so I think I got it right. Throw a screw in there just to hold this whole thing together, because I really would hate for it to all come apart while we're trying to test it here. And what I'll do is I'll just drop the brushes in, and then yeah, we'll throw the power leads directly in without the springs, and then we'll see if it will start up. I feel pretty confident that it will, but you never know. Maybe we got a fluke. Is this a first or second gen lifelike? I think this would count as, it would be a third gen, because the first gen lifelikes are basically just Varney engines. They have a very similar drive. It's just a lot more plastic than the real Varneys. And then the second generation had a motor which was mounted sideways. And then the third generation is when they went to the Kadar drives, which are rip-offs of Bachmann. Of all companies to rip off, I don't know why they picked Bachmann. Maybe it was cost, I don't know. Yeah, so it's running. Seems pretty weak. It doesn't sound very happy, but it is running, so that's a good sign. To make sure I got everything like positioned correctly. Like, it feels like it's all turning okay. Throw a tiny bit of oil on this. A little on there too. And I guess we'll try packing the brushes back away and just try to rev the heck out of it. SMT turned the F7 into the Swayze Express. Well, the thing is, I already have a couple of silver locomotives, which I think would be really good candidates to turn into the Swayze Express. Again, the big issue I've had with trying to commit to that project is just finding the correct paints to actually do all the decals and so on. That engine has a lot of different features on it, so I don't know how to do that. I'm not very good at painting. And here's a trick you can do. You can just kind of stretch these back out. You don't want to overdo this, because the springs are not going to come out great, but this is a trick that you can usually get more life out of your springs with. I mean, the metal is fatigued, so this is not going to last as long as a new set of springs. But you're working with a cheap engine like this, you really don't want to be dumping money into them. So yeah, if you want to save some cash, just stretch the springs back out. I've done that on engines like 5 years ago, and they're still running today. So, you know, I don't think it's a waste of time, that's for sure. I'll throw the other screw in here, tighten it all up. I'm glad the motor at least has some signs of working. I mean, I'm not against rewinding these things. I just, what I don't want to do is do a bad rewind on it and then put all the effort into something that ends up burning out again. How are you doing, and how's your girlfriend? I'm pretty well. My girlfriend's not here at the moment, but I think she's fine. Are these trains expensive? Not really. I think these engines would sell for like $40 when they were brand new, and you can find them used for $10 usually. They're not, the lifelikes are not valuable. They're not rare. And not a lot of people really like them. I like them. They're a nostalgic brand, and I find them easy to work on. So for those two reasons, I think they're good engines, but they weren't high quality. I mean, like it's all plastic. They were just, you know, these are dime a dozen engines. Basically like throwaway engines. So if you want to get into model railroading really cheap, just find an old lifelike train set. Somebody's probably given one away somewhere. So we could remove this and install the brushes down here. It's just these wires are not very long, so I'm just wondering if that would be easier or not. Let's try it out. Oh. That almost looks like a defective part. I wonder if that was caught in the drive. Yeah, look at that. It came right off the bearing there. Can it pull Amtrak cars? We'll see. Lifelikes can usually pull about 15 cars. They don't have very strong motors, but they've got, you know, 4 traction tires, so that usually gives them some decent grip. And if ever you want one to run backwards, just flip the plates around. Oh man, you started without me. This repair could take hours. We'll see. Can you do a live stream with your girlfriend so we can ask questions? Yeah, I'd if she's open to it, I'd be happy to do another live stream with the Clo. Okay, let's see if I can do this without losing the springs. Another thing too, if you're rebuilding one of these things yourself, don't put crazy amount of torque on any of these screws. I mean, they're threaded into plastic, so don't keep tightening them down because they will just go until they strip. I'll say too, the plastic feels a little bit melted towards the top. I think that, you know, they probably just were soldering the wires right onto the metal, like before adding them actually on here. That's probably why it's all warped, which could be another reason as to why maybe this thing was having some issues with its brushes. Tight is nice, tight is broke. I feel like that's a reference to something. Okay, let's hope it starts. Well, I'll be darned, it doesn't want to go. What in the world? Sometimes if you spin these things over manually, it can help the brushes seat. Still doesn't want to play though. Let's see. Well, I am very stumped. This doesn't make sense. We've got an engine which has a motor which seems okay. Maybe the brushes are just not providing enough tension. That or the springs are the things that provide the tension, but I'm wondering if maybe the brushes are kind of stuck in place and maybe they're not like moving freely enough. So we'll just have to open this back up again. Let's get the 2 springs out of there. See, the thing is though, like the brushes both look loose. Like, you know, we were able to get them to fall out. So let's try giving this thing some voltage. We'll try to do kind of like a bit of a break in here. I'm not really putting any tension on this because you don't want to... Yeah, you hear how it's revving up? Still does not sound very healthy though, and it is kind of drawing a lot of current, so maybe this is a bad motor. I don't know. Oh, it looks like we got a super chat. Let's see who that's from. St. Louis Trains, or as the slogan goes, Conrail quality, but it's made to a life like I guess not. Well, to my understanding, Conrail did have quite a few operating issues, so I feel like this is actually like pretty on brand. Not quality. Well, it's starting to drop amps a little bit, so I don't know, maybe that was enough. Let's try really stretching out these springs and see if we can get those to do their job. I mean, again, when I got this engine, it was a runner to some extent, so I theoretically, we have everything we need. This engine's a con fail. That's just brutal. I'm not trying to upset any Conrail fans out there, too. I know it is a nostalgic railroad for some people out there. Sparky comes to mind. Let's just kind of overdo this a little bit, see if that is the ticket. You should 3D print some HO figures of Randy, Mr. Leahy, and Bubbles to place on your layout. That's a good idea. It'd be cool to add a trailer park somewhere on the layout. Could have Ricky's car in it and everything. So I don't know if this is really going to work, but let's try it out. Maybe this time we'll be lucky. I hope this isn't just a lemon. Hey, SMT, any recommendations for slow locomotives? I already cleaned the wheels and oil. Well, if you're talking about slow operation, I mean, some engines just were not geared for low speed. Like, if you're working with an older engine, it's probably not going to be the best. There are motors you can buy on eBay now, which actually have a gear reduction. So it's like you've got the shaft of the motor, and then that feeds into a gearbox, which, you know, was sometimes like a 32-to-1 reduction. So for every 32 RPM the motor does, the shaft does like 1 RPM. And if you hook up one of those to an older engine, you might be able to get some good low speed out of it. But with the stock components, it's in some cases just kind of a... it's just, there are just limitations with the, you know, drive itself. I've never tried it myself too, but I've heard of a lot of people, even with these kinds of engines, you can put CD drives in them. Apparently that will increase the performance. I mean, locomotives that run slow. So if you've already cleaned the gearbox, I mean, that would be number one, but check to make sure everything's turning manually, 'cause sometimes things will hold up. But yeah, if you're giving something a lot of voltage and it's hardly moving, that is not a good sign. And there's a lot of people in the hobby, and they always tell you to stay away from voltage. Voltage is bad. Like, don't, you know, give your engines more than 12 volts or something like that. I don't find voltage alone is usually what destroys an engine. I mean, if you give an engine like 27 volts or something, yeah, you're going to have problems. But, you know, I run my locomotives, you know, on 18 volts all day long without problems. What I find does destroy a motor really fast is if something's holding it back, and then you give it a lot of voltage, then that's where you have catastrophic failure, because you're in that case, the motor starts pulling a lot of amps, so it starts generating a lot of heat, and then the windings get too hot, and then they burn up, and then that's the end of that. But generally, just as long as things are maintaining a good RPM, like, you know, when you're giving it 18 volts and it's going really fast, you're all right. A22 Vision, thank you so much for the super chat. If you need help, there's this guy on YouTube called SMT Mainline who fixes trains like this all the time. Maybe I should contact that guy. He could probably help me fix this thing. In all seriousness, though, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for becoming a member, too. I see you've got one of those new badges. This engine is just brutal. It doesn't want to thread in. This thing had to have been made on a Friday. What is going on here? There we go. Fine. that was harder than it needed to be. Anyways, That's all. Everybody watching, cross your fingers. If that didn't fix it, I really don't know what will. We're gonna give it all the voltage. Got full 18 volts of power there. Okay. Yeah. That's more like it. Well, thanks for everybody who crossed their fingers. I think together we got this thing going. Now, I would like to service some other things while I'm in here. I mean, first of all, we'll throw the wheels in. And, that's putting up a bit of a fight, too. Put the wheels back in it. Clean the back wheels, because those are in desperate need of some work. And then we'll try to run this thing, and hopefully, if we're lucky, we'll start. This does not seem to want to go into place, which is also kind of concerning. Have you ever had a locomotive that you were not able to fix? It's happened a few times. One time I got a Bachmann consolidation. It was one of those old ones from the 80s. And it had the quartering issue, which they all have. I actually managed to get it quartered correctly. It was running, and then one of the drivers popped off, and it was one of those ones which was riveted in. I have no idea how to fix that even today, so I just gave up on it because I was like, yeah, there's no way that's going to work. And there was another time, too. I had an AHM locomotive, which I was able... I took it apart, and kind of similar to this thing, I could get the motor to spin if I put the leads directly on it, but with the brushes, it just wouldn't work. So then what I tried to do is I pulled out the motor, and I tried to install an eBay motor. And this was really stupid of me. I installed the motor. It was turning over just fine, but the motor was too tall for the shell. So I was so discouraged by that point. I was just like, I'm throwing this thing in the junk bin. So yeah, it does happen. You know, if you're really willing to invest a ton of time and effort into something, I think everything is pretty much fixable. But yeah, there is a certain point where, you know, I feel like it's the sunken cost fallacy, and you've just got to kind of decide, yeah, you know what, I'm not having fun working on this anymore. I'm just going to junk it. And it looks like good evening from sunny South Dakota. Thank you. Make a full recreation of Sunnyvale. Put it next to the Hershey factory. I mean, I guess that'd kind of be a good thing, because the Trailer Park Boys was made in the 2000s, and the Hershey factory takes place in 2005 in Canada, so I guess they've got that in common. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Trailer Park Boys was filmed in Dartmouth, and I think Hershey might have actually had a factory there around that same time. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like I heard something about that. It was always funny with train manufacturers that they made every contemporary railroad to have an F unit, even though most didn't have any type of paint. For example, the Bachmann chassis system. I think the manufacturers just did it because these things were super cheap. Like, you didn't have to put handrails or anything on it. I feel like, you know, for starter set makers, these things were a dream. Out of all the cheap engines, I really like Model Powers. They pull pretty good. Yeah, well, I mean, the Model Powers were never really pretty locomotives, but the ones that were made in Austria by Roco were actually kind of high-end. Like, I would actually say those were not too far away from being as good as Athearn. Clean up the metal wheels, put in back wheel wire. No love for Corner Gas. I never watched a whole lot of Corner Gas. I mean, it's a funny show. I just never saw very much of it. SMT, do you know what Has Been Hotel is? Yeah, I've seen parts of it. Do you have the Hiawatha? Yeah, I've got my grandmother's Hiawatha, and then I also have a modern Fox Valley one. G-scale is expensive. I tend to agree. The first 5 seasons of Trailer Park Boys were filmed in different parks across Nova Scotia. If there was a Hershey factory in Dartmouth, I guess it would have actually made some sense. I always thought that, I know they filmed it in different spots, but I had always thought that it was supposed to take place, like Sunnyvale was supposed to be near Dartmouth. Yeah, it might be hard to find information on that factory because I'm pretty sure they closed that plant around the same time that they closed the Smith Falls one. Is it me or are the prices for locomotives just skyrocketing? No, I think it's a pretty industry-wide issue. I have this like really crummy old catalog from Walters. It was a good catalog when it was new. It's just it had so many years of use that it you know, kind of looks junky. But I love going through it because it has all the prices from when I was a kid back in 2008, and I find it's a very good indicator as to kind of, you know, how things were priced back then and what the market was looking like. I love the live stream. Thank you. The Dartmouth Hershey plant closed December of 2007. Yeah, so it would have been pretty close because the Smith Falls plant was closed in 2008, but they announced the closure, I think, in February of 2007. That's when they announced it. I really wonder, you know, it's hard to say because no company is ever going to share, you know, the real reason that they, you know, make these decisions. I mean, obviously, you know, they're trying to make a profit or whatever. But the thing I find really funny about Hershey's, I mean, they've bought the factory back. Apparently, they want to reopen it. But why they closed the factory in the first place is very strange to me because in 2001, they started like a whole reinvestment program in the factory. So they were going to spend $100 million between then and 2006. So they were still putting brand new equipment into that factory, I think into either August or September of 2006. And then they announced the closure in February of 2007. So there was only about a half-year gap between them, you know, continuing to sink many millions of dollars into a factory and then to close it, you know, just it seems like it was almost like a very spontaneous decision. I love the Hershey Kisses. They are cute. Sounds shady. That's what I've thought too. I don't know. It doesn't match up. Like if they hadn't sunk any money in the factory for a while, it'd be like, okay, you know, this was a plan for a while, you know. But that 6 months, that's not a very big gap. And I mean, 100 million US dollars, like, you know, it's not an insignificant amount of money to put into a facility. Anthony, why are you ignoring me? I don't ignore anybody. Sometimes some comments don't appear from certain people, but I promise I never intentionally ignore anybody unless they're saying some, you know, really unsavory things. Let's do a little more polishing on this wheel right here. See if we can get this thing running real nice. SMT, what's the fair price for an O-scale F7 dummy? Is 160 Canadian too much? I mean, it's hard for me to say because I don't know the O-scale market as well, and I also don't know if you're talking about like a really old Lionel or a new one, but to me that sounds like a lot of money for a dummy engine. Like, in terms of HO, I usually never pay more than $20 for a dummy unit. I know O-scale does tend to be a little bit more expensive, but if I were just to take a guess off the top of my head, I feel like a Lionel dummy unit, if it's like a post-war Lionel, it's probably only worth like maybe 40 Canadian. The people who know more about O-scale, please share your thoughts on that. I thought I was being ignored a few nights ago when you were running trains. I promise, like, from the bottom of my heart, I never intentionally ignore anybody. But there is an algorithm. Like, comments do get sorted, not by me, but just by the algorithm. So just keep that in mind. But no, I never just scout somebody out when they join a stream and be like, maybe I should be a jerk today and, you know, just ignore this guy. It's really not like that. Do you have any Western Pacific locomotives? I've got at least one, yeah. How does that train controller work? I'm confused. It's pretty simple. It's basically just like any other DC train controller. I know these dials and stuff might look fancy, but this is just readout. So when you increase the power, it just tells you how much voltage you're putting in the track. And then this tells you kind of how much energy the engine is actually using. And Jerry says, why do some engines have traction tires and some do not? It's really just preference from the manufacturers. Usually if you have an engine that's really light or lower quality, like this Lifelike, you put traction tires just so that, you know, you can pull more cars without having to increase the amount of drive wheels. But they're less and less popular now. Some high-end manufacturers put them like on their smaller steam engines because they're just trying to pull as much power as they possibly can out of something without a lot of weight. But generally people like stuff that avoids having traction tires just because they do work a little better. This doesn't feel like it's turning right. Do you have anything on pre-order? Not at the moment, but I'm highly considering pre-ordering Rapido's new P32s. I was really surprised that Rapido is making P32s because it's an engine I've wanted for a long time now. And yeah, they're making all the NYC units, so, you know, I'd love to buy one of those. But yeah, to date, I don't know if I even ever have pre-ordered anything. Why is that not turning right? Something's wrong. Jersey Bill, he only has 142,000 subscribers, so I know this is the fastest scroll of comments online. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like when people are trying to, you know, there's like 300 people, 350 people watching live, and everyone's trying to talk to you through a little screen like that. I think, you know, maybe some do go by, but yeah, it's never intentional. So what the heck is going on here? Why is this? This might start to explain why maybe this engine had a high current draw issue. I'll try putting it on this way, see if that makes any difference. Yeah, there we go. Something was hanging up there, but I think we got it. I got myself some liquid electrical tape. Stuff seems to work pretty well. I've been using it as traction tire replacement. Huh. Might be worth trying. I know some people use a product called Bullfrog Snot, which is supposed to be a very similar product, like not to electrical tape, but to, you know, it serves the same purpose. Anyways, let's see if this thing will start here. I just looked up the P32 and they don't have the Empire State Service unit. As a Buffalo Rail fan, this annoys me. Oh no. Well, that's not good. For some reason, it seems to be seized, which is funny because it was running pretty well on the bench. So something happened. try turning over the drive a couple times manually, see if that frees it up. This is not looking good, Scooby. It won't even go forwards. Con fail. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the motor's about to go out. Maybe we'll be lucky, maybe it will break in, but I'm thinking maybe the plastic on it is warped. Like, nothing seems to be fitting together quite right with this. Well, it did drop a few well, not a few amps, but it did drop some amperage, so that's good. I wonder if I should try adding some more oil to the gears. Pull the pin and throw it. I should bring it to a club layout and put it on the layout, but I'll register it to a member of the club that I don't like, and then when it fails and does damage to the layout, they'll think it's their locomotive and they'll get in trouble for it. I mean, it does seem like it's doing a slightly higher RPM, but these light flex, like when you feed them voltage, they should be just like flying around the layout, and this thing is just, it's like, it's doing okay, but it's not what I was hoping for. Let's see if it will do forwards now. Okay, I mean, it is kind of improving. Let's try putting a little more oil in it. I feel like maybe that might be the issue, is we just don't have enough lubrication in the gearbox, and I don't know, either that's gonna make it way worse, or in my fantasy scenario, it will improve it and we'll actually get like nice results. Let's get a screwdriver under there. Yeah, I just wonder if I didn't put enough oil in here. Let's put a nice healthy amount in all these places. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on Western Pacific? I really like their paint scheme, but it's about all I know about them. I think that did help it a little bit. The main reason I like Conrail is because they replaced the Penn Central's paint job, which was good, and they were saving the US rail system, and they got bought out by CSX, Crash and Scrap Express. The drive wheels have double the gear, but the gear on each wheel doesn't seem to be engaged. Are they the right way around? I think they are. I don't know. It is possible maybe when I was assembling this thing earlier, you know, when I had the smaller and larger gears, I could have put them in backwards, but then again, it was also running like this before I worked on it, so who the heck knows? The good news is it did drop a little bit more amperage. That's pretty close to where it should be, but it's still not doing the right RPM, so I don't know. What's the amp draw? Would that be 2/8 of an amp roughly? I can see one of two things happening. Either it breaks in and we start getting like a good RPM out of it, or it overheats and the motor burns up. Run it till the magic's... Yeah, I guess we could try that. I mean, if the block is warped, there's not really much to save anyway. Train Street, have you seen any of my videos before? I don't know if I have. Have you ever considered getting a 3D printer and making things for your layout? Oh yeah, well, I have the printer. I just need to get into using it for more stuff. Once the magic smoke has been released, it can't go back in. That's 100% true. Once the genie's out of the bottle, it's not going back in there. Hey, SMT, guess what? I just had guitar lessons. Oh, that's cool. You're gonna learn how to play Money for Nothing? Got some, they all run a little different. Well, Lifelike was not known for their like quality assurance, so I mean it's perfectly possible this thing could just be a lemon, but I just don't understand what's the matter with it. I mean, other than the plastic being warped, everything seems fine. Do you have any Broadway limited locomotives? I've got a couple of them, yeah. They're all right. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade, yeah. I think it might be picking up the pace a little bit. Try to flip the gears. Let's give it a moment here. Let's see if anything changes. If it doesn't, then maybe I'll try doing something else. But I don't know if it's me, but I feel like it is picking up the pace a tiny bit. You ever go rail fanning? Not terribly often. There isn't a whole lot to rail fan in Ottawa. Like the closest you're really going to get to actually seeing freight trains is out in like Smith Falls, Ontario. That's the biggest active rail yard. Well, Ottawa has Walkley Yard, but not much is going on there these days. So it's not so much that I wouldn't like to rail fan. There's just not that much available. Are you and Chloe still into horseback riding? Oh yeah, for sure. She's out there a lot. Get a stopwatch and time it for a few passes. Yeah, it will be like the training montage from Rocky IV. Watch, the Conrail is gonna start smoking just like the Varney did. I don't know. What brand is the O-Train? It's a Brawa model. Some German manufacturer. Insert the Team America theme song. Oh no, the Team America montage. That was a pretty good montage too. I swear, I don't know. It does sound like it's picking up some RPMs here. Let's go check on the current draw, see if that has gone up or down. Looks to me like it's exactly the same, which is sort of a mutual thing. I mean, it's kind of neutral. It hasn't gotten better. It also hasn't gotten worse. And I'm happy it hasn't come up, but it doesn't... Yeah, I don't know. Try running it backwards again. I guess we could try that. Might speed up the braking. Now it won't even go into reverse. Oh, there we go. Rub the Conrail bottle and wait for the magic smoke to come out, and then you get your 3 wishes of seizing and warped plastic and compressed springs. I feel like I've already got enough of those things in my life, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will get my 3 wishes from this. Let it pull some cars. Well, I want to give it a fair shake on braking, because if you try to put an engine under load, it's going to be doing a lower RPM while pulling more current. So I could try, but it does increase the chances of failure by a fair bit. Seems like it's running okay to me. It's not horrible. It's just like, I don't know, the way it should have, when I threw it in reverse, like it should have just instantly taken off. Like the fact that it stalled for a second is not a good sign. It's definitely running better than when we first put it on the track though, so I really don't know. I'm running out of ideas here. Let's see if it likes going back into forwards. Did you clean the wheels? Yep. Uh-oh. The amp draw is going up. I don't know. I don't know if I should just let the armature go out or if I should stop it and try to fiddle with the gears again. I just don't know if the results are going to be any different. Let me, I'll stop it here. I'll see. Did you clean the brushes? To be fair, I didn't. Usually just letting it rev is enough to do that, but I don't know. Here, let's see here. What kind of temperatures are we dealing with? Is it like, first of all, yeah, that doesn't smell good. It's definitely overheating a little bit. How bad is it? I mean, that is hot. That's pretty hot. But I've seen some engines that have overheated so bad that if you touch the motor, like, it will actually burn. And I mean, this is just like really warm. Let me see if I have my thermal radar thing around here. So get that on there. This is about 102. It's about 46 Celsius or so. So not great numbers, but also not the worst. It's it could be worse, that's for sure. I don't know. Let's open it up. Let's see if I've got those gears wrong. Maybe I put the order backwards, because that definitely would cause a situation like this where it's running just not very well. But I'm afraid what's going to end up happening is either that's not going to work, or I'm just going to end up, making this thing just as bad as it was. But yeah, it's just really strange. I've worked on a lot of lifelikes, and I haven't seen one with this many problems before. And I've seen some that have like crazy hours on them and they run better than this. You said it yourself, the plastic is warped, so the axles... Yeah, I mean, maybe that is the fundamental problem, maybe I can do anything and it won't even change it because it's so messed up. Hey, it didn't melt the springs though, that's good. The Conrail has... Yeah, it's warm. So like even just the way all this stuff's aligned doesn't look right. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it really is just a dud. Feels like all that has decent clearance. Are you doing a giveaway tonight? No giveaways tonight, no. I don't know if it's the heat, but now this thing doesn't even want to come apart. Oh, yeah, the 2 more screws. I always forget these. And they never make it easy on you. Do the rails give the train power? Oh, yeah. Let's put some voltage in there and you're good to go. There we go. Okay. So, the mistake I might have made is there, as I said earlier, there's 2 different sizes of gears. Now, I put them in like that. Maybe it goes the other way around. I'm going to be surprised if that's the case, but let's try it anyhow. So, put one of the small devils down there. Maybe I did this wrong. I think that's the smaller one. Now the question is, will this larger one go into place? Yeah, it doesn't want to You see how it's sitting on top of the other 2 gears? So I was right. I had it right the first time. So these were all okay. It's too bad. It seemed like for a moment there maybe we'd found the problem, but I mean, yeah, still no good. Or if maybe I did put those parts in wrong, though. I mean, maybe is it possible I got this part backwards? Maybe these are... Maybe that's where I messed up. What do you think about Proto 2000 locomotives? I think they're good locomotives. The older ones have issues where the nylon gears split. But other than that, I mean, they're basically just Dathern Blue Box clones. So they have a nearly identical motor, chassis. Everything's pretty much the same. They're so similar you can actually swap parts between them. I think the blue boxes are slightly more reliable, but not by like a crazy amount. Do you wash your hands after these videos? Oh, absolutely. You see how, like, you know, greasy some of these things can be? I wonder if this is even like... Yeah, okay, that's pivoting like it should. That's good. Which is more reliable, metal or plastic gears? My money's going with metal. Funny you say that. So, metal gears, in my opinion, are better because they aren't prone to cracking. The only thing, though, and this is where it gets sort of funny, is that if you don't maintain your stuff, like, you know, in a lot of consumer train sets like this Lifelike, people never oil them or anything. And plastic gears will tolerate not being lubricated a lot better than metal gears because, like, nylon is just so low friction that even if there isn't any oil in here, you know, these things can run for an awful long time without there even being a lubricant in there. Metal gears will not accept that. If you run metal gears dry, you know, within... you know, a very short time frame, you're going to end up stripping your gears out, and then that's going to be the end of them. So if you maintain your stuff, the metal gears are better. If you don't maintain your stuff, the plastic gears sometimes will outlast them. I hope it works. Well, I'm not seeing anything really, like, different, unfortunately. So, you know, the only thing, too, is, like... you know, these are kind of hard to get into place. I gotta wonder if maybe they're too... Well, they got play. I don't know. I was gonna say if, like, the axles were getting gripped too tight, maybe, you know, it could bore them out a little bit, but they have play. I don't know. Let's just pack it all back away. We'll see if it made any difference. I'm not expecting there to be any difference because I didn't change anything, but you never know. Sometimes things are just slightly out of place, and when you move it around, things might go into alignment. You're not really supposed to put these in before you put the wheels in. Does it spin free with the cover off? I think so. I mean, like this is that's a normal amount of effort. Like, it's practically effortless, which is what you want. I'm going to put in these 2 screws right here with very little torque, because it's possible, you know, if these are going in at a funny angle, maybe they would change something. Are the gears cracked? That's the #1 cause of non-function. I don't see any signs of cracked gears. I did notice one of the wheels has a small crack, but nothing significant. Usually cracked gears don't prevent an engine from going. I mean, I've got some Bachmann engines which have like multiple split gears, and you know, they sound horrible, but they usually will still maintain a decent RPM. So I think what we might have right here is just a case where, you know, the plastic, you know, it could have been a old mold or something like that, and it warped, and what ends up happening is, you know, all these gears which are supposed to be straight are turning at like funny RPMs, or not funny RPMs, but they're turning at weird angles and things like that. You can kind of hear it in the gearbox there that things are not turning right. Too much tension on the brushes would cause it to have what you have. Yeah, I mean, maybe I added too much, but it also wouldn't start without that. So yeah, let's try going backwards a little here, see if we can kind of compress these down a little. You're one of the best mechanics, and you've helped the hobby, and you're helping me do better. Thank you. Just grab a new drive out of your scrap bin. Yeah, I mean, I probably do have the parts, so I guess that's an option. Yeah, maybe that's a better idea, because again, like if all these parts are just warped, that still sounds like junk. So yeah, let's go digging through the spare parts bin. Let's see if I have a spare lifelike drive. Hopefully one with a bad motor, and then we can take the good parts out of this and try to, you know, mess around with them. I mean, I'm sure I've got one. It's just, you know, how much is this worth dumping time and money into? Let's get a light going here. There's some lifelike parts. That's a good sign. More lifelike parts. Let's check right here. I'm sure there is like a lifelike drive somewhere in here. Let's go up a floor. What Locomotive do you recommend for a small switching layout? Do you think I could have a small switching layout with a 4x1 shelf? Yeah, you could definitely build a switching layout on something like that. I'm not really sure what kind of engine would be best. The thing that's annoying is I was in here not that long ago, and Yeah, I was gonna say, I could have sworn I saw a half cooked up lifelike drive, and this looks perfect because it's already been parted out. So let's try that. You know, something else just crossed my mind, which is like when I took the armature out, I pulled out one of the magnets. I wonder if I put it in backwards. We must unfail the Conrail. We must unfail the Confail no matter what the cost. Maybe so. See, I have no idea where this drive came from. It's been in that bin for... Yeah, I probably threw that in there because it wasn't coming apart. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, there we go. Tripod is struggling. Hopefully nothing's broken on this. Well, it looks pretty intact. I think I just lost one of the brushes. Classic. Actually, I'm going to put the two springs in here. Brushes are easier to find. It's important that we make sure that the parts are well separated. So this is a junk part, that's a junk part, junk. Yeah, it already fouled that up a little bit. So now we got those separated. I'm just going to do a little bit of cleaning in here just so that, you know, we're off to the right start. I really hope this fixes it. Oh, that's some nasty grease. Maybe this engine's a little less serviceable than I thought. Well, this is a first for me. I've never seen a life like this bad before. I forgot to mention that I went to a local train show and picked up a late 1990s Atlas N-Scale BNSF SD60M for $35, mint condition. It runs great. I've heard great things about the old Atlas locomotives. I mean, the new ones are good too, but especially in the N-Scale community, I've heard a lot of good things. I don't know if it's the same case for the N-Scale stuff, but I know at least for their HO lineup, I'm pretty sure older Atlas engines were actually made by Kato, which has a pretty good reputation for, you know, making reliable locomotives. Alrighty, let's see if we can get this thing back together again. Compare the magnets, maybe you put one in backwards. Well, yeah, I mean, these are both face down. It's entirely possible the same thing could have happened with this motor as well. I'll have to be careful not to mess these up, but that one's blackened on both sides, and this one is only on the one, so I have no idea if I flipped it around by accident or something, but I'm just going to use the magnets on this one, and hopefully they're aligned correctly. I love your HO scale, but I'm still a trolley fanatic. There's a hobby shop near me that has old Atlas branded N-scale locomotives. Apparently it has a Kato made mechanism, so that checks out. Are there any model train communities or groups to follow on Twitter X? I don't know. I don't really ever use Twitter. I am going to need to steal a post off the old drive right here. We'll try to throw that in there. I just need to retrieve that one gear that I dropped. Is your layout DC or DCC? I'm new to the hobby. After years of having the tracks and engines, I've decided to make a layout. So my layout is a hybrid. It operates off both controllers. I have a switch basically to toggle between them. It's pretty easy to wire up too if you can't decide. Personally, I prefer DC, but there are a lot of benefits to DCC. You know, you do have a lot more control over the locomotive, and if you want features like sound and, you know, the ability to control locomotives individually on the same track, it definitely can be a very cool thing. So it might be good is, you know, see if you can find a hobby shop or a club layout or meet somebody who has a DCC layout and then try it out for yourself, see if you like it. Just going to put a little bit of oil on there and then let's seal this thing up. Oh yeah, I better not forget that one little bearing there too. That part seems pretty good. It looks okay. What DCC controller would you specifically recommend? Are there anyone that's better than the other? Bachmann hasn't updated their DCC system in a while. I wonder why. I don't have many strong opinions on DCC just because I don't have as much experience with it. I use Digitrax. I've got the DCS 51. They have the DCS 52 out now, which is basically just a modern version. And I worked with that controller. I really like it. But I haven't worked enough with the other brands to say myself. The only thing I will say is that I did have a poll a few months ago, and Digitrax did come out #1. So take with that what you will. I wish I had a straight answer, but I just don't want to be talking about something which I don't feel, you know, I really have enough knowledge on to really, like, have a good take on. The MRC Mach 6, it's a dual controller. Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, wait, I'm putting that on backwards now. It feels like it's turning better. I don't want to be too optimistic before we actually get this thing running, but I'm going to be very curious to see if our results are any different here. Let me just grab that other brush there. You should invest in some Mark's HO scale rolling stock. It must be good quality considering Lionel still uses the 70-year-old model molds in their overpriced starter sets. Yeah, Mark's made decent stuff. I haven't worked with a crazy amount of it, but apparently when it was new, it was very affordable. And I've got to say, their engines use a pretty good design. They were very similar to Varney's and other brands of the same era. So, you know, I'll give credit where credit is due. But yeah, I've heard that too, that Lionel, they basically took 70-year-old tooling and then they threw metal wheels and knuckle couplers on it and called it a day and said, this is our high-end HO line. I think that's a little bit better. Of course, another thing to remember too is, of course, all these components have worn in while being in warped plastic. So if they work in this, they might take a while to, like, they kind of have to relearn, if that makes sense. Everybody needs to get to know each other, you know? It's like when you start off a party. Do you have an ultrasonic cleaner? Yeah, I do. Forget the model of it. It's made by Crewworks. It's sort of piggy-sized for, like, what I need, but I just figured if I ever have to work on O-scale stuff, I may as well have one that's kind of, like, too big and then, you know, be, like, industrial enough. Well, here goes nothing. Conrail F7 1639 versus SMT screwdriver. It's the battle of a lifetime. That looks a lot better. Dropped a little bit of current draw, but it's like even like without breaking in, it's already doing like, this is about where a lifelike should run. Like that it's that distinct sound. Kind of sounds like a slot car. It's so nostalgic. My very first locomotive, well, it was one of three, but was a lifelike, so that the sound is very familiar. But yeah, this is what we're gonna do it. We got her. Yes, we got a runner. Serenity. Let's see how it goes in a reverse. Oh no. It's when we're riding our highest, things seem okay. You can't keep doing this. Oh no. I don't understand though, it wasn't drawing that many amps. Did it seriously toast its springs again? And this thing is just a force to be reckoned with. I think I've met my match. Smoky time. I don't think it's gonna burn up though. I think it's just gonna destroy the brushes. Like, it's out of breath. Yeah, exactly. Let's let it run around for a few laps, see if it can kind of break in. But I mean, the current draw is really low now, so I don't think the motor is gonna fail. The poor thing wants to, yeah, maybe it does want to be put out of its misery. Who knows? This doesn't seem that bad to me though. Like this seems pretty. Never mind. Try running after, it might take time. You got a point there. Let's see if it melted a brush. Now he has a loose wire from taking it apart. You know, David, I wouldn't even be surprised. I don't know, they're both hanging on there. I think it just decided that it didn't like one of those springs, and it probably just shrunk right back down again. Oh, that's bad. The engine works, it's the pickup. It can't be the pickup because the headlight stays on, so it's getting power. Just, I don't know, maybe there's a, like, this all looks solid. And we know these wires are both good because, again, the light is getting power, so is it possible that maybe there's oxidization on these plates which is preventing power from going through them? I don't know. Well, I'll polish them up for the heck of it, but honestly, I don't know how much more time and energy I want to put into this thing, because I feel like, I don't know, this is just becoming the sunken cost fallacy. Like, how many parts or, hours do you want to put in? Whoa! You see that? Maybe that is the problem. That looks pretty bad. I wonder what the other one looks like. That one's screwed up too. Well, is it possible this has just been the problem the entire time? Yeah, it's all covered in crap. Wow. Target spotted. Yeah, exactly. We have our suspect. Yeah, that looks pretty bad right there, honestly. That's a pretty weird problem. Not something I've encountered too many times before, but maybe the brushes and the springs have been innocent this whole time, and these just have spontaneously stopped delivering power. Because usually if it's a problem with the brushes, if you force the engine to move, they'll reseat and it will start again. So, yeah. Very, very rare problem. Even if those weren't the problem, though, it definitely did have other problems, though, because, I mean, that wouldn't explain why the revs were so low, because the revs were low when I was testing it without these plates, just, you know, applying power directly to the brushes, so this thing's clearly just screwed up more than one way. But yeah, I'm feeling a little more optimistic that this time it's actually going to run properly. I'm also going to clean these up. I don't usually do this because, again, the RPMs usually, like as this spins around, do that job, but you never know. That would also explain why the motor got hot. I would say it probably had more to do with the warping issue, but yeah, it wasn't helping, that's for sure. This engine is just like me. It's lazy, stubborn, and tired all the time. Survey on whether it works, yes or no. Yeah, everyone place your bets. It's like deal or no deal. Do you have to do another armature test? I don't know. I think the armature is okay. I think it's probably those contacts that were leading to it just randomly shutting down, and then I think the warping issue is maybe why it was overheating. So I think this might be one of those times where it's not really like a singular issue that's causing it not to run right. I mean, even before, you know, we've cleaned those contacts, it definitely had picked up a lot of RPM with the new plastic body, so. And I wonder if somebody gave this engine away. I hope it runs perfectly. Yeah, this dispatcher says no defects. I really hope this has done it. I mean, at least we found a problem. What you never want is to open something up and find nothing when stuff isn't working right. So, seems to be doing about the same RPM as before. That is fine. And the current draw is the same too, so it hasn't become any more efficient, but it did start without any hesitation, but it's when it goes in reverse, it has problems. So let's try it now. Nothing. See, I don't even want to say that we finally, like, beat this thing, just because every time I've thought it's okay, it just seems to throw out another problem, but I think it's fine. Let it do a few laps here. Congratulations, you now have a $5 locomotive. Yeah! The SMT collection is worth $3 more. Did you know that you can convert horn hooks to couple with KD style couplers with an easy mod? If you look on the horn hook from the bottom, it looks like a rabbit. What brand is this, Bachmann? No, it's a Lifelike. We got a runner. I baptized the Conrail. Oh, thank you for the super chat, St. Louis Trains. And now that it works, it will derail and throw itself on the table and smash into a trillion pieces. Well, I hope not, but I think we should try hauling some cargo with this thing. Let it be as lifelike as it can. I've got to say, this thing put up a real fight. I was not expecting to have this many different problems. I'm just amazed that with all those issues, like again, if you go back and you watch the video where I got this thing started and it was running around the layout. So it's so strange that, you know, after sitting for many years, I was able to get it to start right up. And then it's like, it just, you know, within like a few days managed to develop all these different issues. Like, I don't know if it just held together long enough for that video, but I just find it really, really weird. What's the low speed like? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's Jersey Billy made $2.50 an hour. Yeah, that's true. Thanks for the super chat there, Bill. Consolidated, not a failure. Let's see. Can I get it to go any slower? The NMRA would be so proud right now. I mean, this is definitely like, you could take this to a train show. It does train show speed. All the precision modelers out there, they would just look at this and they'd be like, wow, that's a good train right there. Dropping down the voltage a little bit more. In all seriousness, for a Lifelike, this is actually pretty good performance. Okay, so right there at about 2 volts, it seems to cut out. And then if you go back to like 2.5 volts, it continues just kind of creeping wrong. There it is. It's now your best runner. Yeah, well, at least all that time and effort paid off. Yeah, let's go pick up some cars with this thing. This is my new Ferrari here. A lot of people out there grow up with Thomas the Tank Engine, but you know, sometimes you have to get dollar store Thomas, which is this locomotive. It is a blue engine, and yeah, this is discount Thomas right here. So I think I'll just pull these cars through here and let's get it hooked up that way. What rails are on your layout? They're code 100 nickel silver. I feel like you should repaint the unit into its actual paint scheme black Penn Central. Is that what this exact engine was? I mean, I know Conrail is made out of Penn Central, but is that what this specific... Did this engine exist is what I'm trying to say. Oh, I forgot to line that switch. Oops. It didn't cut off on its own, by the way, too. It just did that because this is electrically isolated. Hey, it's the man of the hour, Sparky. How are you? We have Thomas at home, Thomas at home. Yeah, this is Thomas at home. All right, let's see what this baby can do. Oh yeah, it's a puller. Sparky, what do you think? We got this beautiful new Conrail locomotive. Big baby blue, yeah. It did exist. Oh. It's true. So here it is on Eddie's fan page. So this is what this engine looked like in its Penn Central colors. What I want to know is whether or not they actually painted it into a Conrail. Conrail had them for inspection trains. They probably just patched it out to the early Conrail black. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because if you look at this picture, so this is a image from the Conrail photo archive, and it's CR on it. So, so I guess they never repainted it to this color, but technically Conrail did have this locomotive. So, some props to Lifelike for not, making a completely fictional engine. That's kind of cool. Where did the O-train come from? I bought it off eBay. The real one was from Germany. They were... I think what happened was, I think it was a German company, and then Bombardier bought them out, and so it was a Bombardier talent, but it was not originally like a Bombardier product. But the models were also a German design. $1648 did have blue paint, but it seems it didn't have the correct logo. It's just the CR stencils. Same with the GG1. The only one they ever painted blue was 4800. The rest were black and white with the CR initials. Greetings from Ottawa. I saw the O train too. Yeah, well, it was our commuter train for a long time. I miss it. The Talons were pretty cool. I mean, I only rode it like a handful of times, but yeah, I mean, they really did look like they were out of the future at the time. I would even argue the interiors still look better than the current ones. They're more reliable, that's for sure. SMT, my friend gave me a President's Choice Insider Express set a while ago, and I don't know much about the PC train sets. The one I got was from 1993, but I could be wrong. That sounds about right. You're pretty lucky. Those are actually really good sets. The controllers, the track, and the rolling stock are not that great, but the locomotives in those were made by Mahano, and they're pretty high quality for what they were. They're very reliable engines, so yeah, you made off with a pretty good, for a starter set. You did pretty well. Life like having a 40% prototypical locomotive the first time in history before protos came along. Yeah, this may be the Proto 2000 of its day. The engine is a 260 Mogul. Oh, nice. What controller do you use? A MRC. Well, I'll just show them both to you. So I got a couple controllers here. This is my DC controller. This is the MRC Tech 3 9500 series. Great controller. And then for DCC, we got the Digitrax DCS 51. Proto at home. Yeah, exactly. Mahano's Purple Box Premier series are the best for their locomotive models, by the way. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. Like the older Mahano stuff, like from the 70s and the 80s, I think it was only in the 90s they started to kind of get higher quality. It's okay. I do find their older stuff is pretty reliable too, but yeah, the biggest thing Mahano upgraded was the motors. The older motors are usually the thing that fails. Like, it's very rare that I open up an IHC Mahano engine and see a bad gearbox or anything like that, or a bad chassis. It's almost always the motor, specifically the commutator. They just put really small commutators on them, and so, you know, when they're spinning at a really high RPM, they just tend to foul up, and then they start to burn, which is no good. I love Mahano steam engines. I've had one since 2007. It was around the same time as, well, it was the same engine Mahano actually did include in one of their train sets. It's the number 6060 Canadian National. And that thing's been a tank. I was not easy on it as a kid. I was overloading it all the time. I ran the snot out of that thing, and it still runs as well as the day I got it. It's never given me any trouble. It's just been a solid engine. Horn hook couplers on that? Yeah, it's got horn hooks. Why no Bachmann Easy Track on your layout? I've just never been crazy about the stuff. I mean, Easy Track is fine if you're, you know, just setting up like a layout, like to start off with, but I don't know, in the long run I don't find it's the greatest. Have you ever found anyone that prints gears for lifelike or cheap Bachmanns? I haven't found any for sale. I know that for the steam engines, somebody's selling them on eBay. I don't really know how good those are or not, but I think we're going to see more of that. I don't find the lifelike gears really go bad. The proto gears definitely are notorious for cracking, but ironically, they're cheap engines like this. I don't remember ever opening one up and seeing bad gears. I've opened countless Bachmans, which have a very similar drive to this up, and they have the cracked gears. I think lifelike used slightly better nylon, and the other big thing is that they didn't use interference fits. So the parts in a lifelike engine, nothing's pressurized, so there's not as much stress on the nylon. Whereas in the Bachmann engines, for whatever reason, they decided to use an interference fit between that metal component, the two metal axles, and the gears. I don't know why they did that, but I think it's a huge reason why those fail. So replacement gears on the lifelikes are not a very big concern as far as I can tell. What track would you recommend when building a new layout? For switches, I usually go with Pico. For the rest of it, for the curves and the straights, I usually just go with Atlas. Everything I use is code 100. Everything, well, not everything, but most of what I use is nickel silver. That's what I'd recommend. But I don't really have specific brands in mind. I do prefer the Atlas switches are okay. I prefer the Pico ones though. I did some research on the PC train sets, and they were sold from 1992 to 2006. They were a huge hit. Yeah, well, I remember seeing them in stores. And from what a lot of people in the hobby during that time have told me, basically what would happen is they would get these train sets in around Christmas time. They would sell them for $100 each, which was less than the locomotives were worth alone. So you basically got a discount steam engine plus track, a controller, and cars. So that was an amazing deal. But then this was where things got really crazy. The day after Christmas, on Boxing Day, since they would only do one run a year, the stores would all want to offload them, so they would sell them for half off. So you could buy a President's Choice train set, which has an engine worth like, $150 on its own, for $50. And again, you get the track and the controller, the cars and everything like that. So you'd have guys just going into these stores and they would buy stacks of them, and then they would pull the engines out of them and they would throw them on eBay and just throw the cars and everything else out. Like it was wild. I did some research though. There was a guy who worked for President's Choice in the 90s, and he was the one who kind of drove that whole thing forward. He wanted the Christmas trains. He didn't want to sell out and sell those junky train sets that most grocery stores have. He wanted to sell actual model trains. So he was the one who got in contact with Mahano and contracted them out to make those sets. So if he hadn't left the company, I think they probably would have continued making them. I actually, I tried to, I looked the guy who was behind it up, behind all that on LinkedIn, because I was hoping to do like a kind of history piece on Mahano, and I was thinking it'd be really cool if I could do an interview with this guy and how he was the one who, put that whole deal together. But unfortunately, he never responded to me, so I don't know if we're ever gonna hear his side of the story exactly, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's nuts. I didn't know any of this. The friend I got it from worked at Loblaws. Yeah, that's where I remember seeing them. I don't know if there were any other President's Choice stores other than Loblaws that sold them, but like President's Choice with all the stuff Galen Weston owns is pretty big, so I wouldn't be surprised if, maybe there were some other grocery stores that sold them too. Galen Weston, for anybody that doesn't know too, is basically like Canadian Bill Gates. Would you ever open your own model train store? Maybe a physical store, then an online store could be a hit. I've considered it a lot. Yeah, thought about it. Opening something up and having used model trains mostly. I don't know. Bon Nuit SMT, thank you. You should repaint the Con No Fail, do tutorial on how to paint locomotives right. I wish I could. I don't find I'm that good at painting. I mean, I did like this thing, but yeah, it's really not like my #1 talent. I need to develop that skill a little bit, I think, before I go making videos on how to do stuff with paint. But as for repair videos, those are going to keep coming. Superstore is the only other President's Choice store I can think of. I think so, being from Toronto. Anyways, it's about 11 o'clock now, so I think I'll end off the live stream just so I don't keep everyone upstairs awake. But thank you all so much for joining in. I've got to say, I'm really happy with the results of this thing now. Earlier, I was really unsure as to whether or not this was actually going to be a success, because honestly, I was pretty sure in the beginning this wasn't going to be as difficult as it turned out to be. But you know what? The results speak for themselves. It seems to be running well, so I'm really happy with that. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. I'll read off a few last comments just before I finish it off here. SMT Bob of Bob's Workshop does a lot of repainting cars with spray paint. That's good to know. Maybe I should check out his stuff, and maybe we could do some sort of a collaboration or something. I don't know. And then we got another one here. Did you know that Conrail had black EAS with yellow logos and EADS with blue paint, white logos? I was not aware of that. Recommends an IH set called the Millennium Express GG1 train. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Good night. Have you ever thought about integrating a tiny camera into a train to get shots on your layout? I kind of did that a few months ago. If you look up the SMT mainline train simulator, you should find the video where I set up a train simulator with a camera on the train and run it around. But it's probably going to be more content on that in the future. And finally, thanks for the info on the President's Choice train site. Yeah, no problem. Anyways, have a wonderful night, everyone. Thanks for stopping by.